Welcome to the Harris County Flood Control District's virtual community engagement meeting to discuss project hunting. The virtual community engagement meeting is being offered by the Flood Control District to continue to share vital information with the community during this period when in-person meetings have been suspended due to safety concerns from the COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Sparkle Bell with the Flood Control District Communications team. I'm joined tonight by a team of Flood Control District leadership and subject matter experts to ensure we continue to keep you up to date on these important flood mitigation projects in your community. We're joined tonight by Precinct 1 County Commissioner Rodney Ellis, who has called in to kick things off.
Hello, this is Harris County Commissioner Rodney Ellis. Thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to join us this evening. These meetings are important. Getting your feedback and opinions on flood control projects is how we can ensure that projects work for you and your neighbors. Flooding is an ever-present threat to our community. It remains one of Harris County's highest priorities. As we approach the third anniversary of Hurricane Harvey later this month, we can't forget that many of our communities are vulnerable to flooding. Since joining Commissioners Court in 2017, I have fought for equity to be at the center of our decision making when it comes to prioritizing flood control projects across the county. In 2018, Harris County voters passed a $2.5 billion flood bond that gave underserved communities their first opportunity to receive real flood mitigation. Explicit ballot language required a process for the equitable distribution of flood bonds to reduce flood risk. After decades of neglect, lower income areas and communities of color in flood prone areas have been experiencing flooding of homes and streets with each hard rain because these communities have been passed over for years due to an inequitable federal formula. That formula would prioritize flood mitigation projects based on property values, not people. That serves only those who live in higher income neighborhoods rather than those in the most need. With these guidelines, we are now able to prioritize areas that have a higher risk for loss of life due to disasters and take longer to recover from those disasters. The federal project on Hunting Bayou will provide long overdue relief from the cycle of severe flooding and rebuilding. But we know that we can always improve. We still have work to do to make your community stronger and more resilient to flooding. Your feedback tonight will make an enormous difference as we work together to make this project the best that it can be. Thank you for being a part of tonight's call, and thanks to the Harris County Flood Control District for hosting this virtual meeting. We're looking forward to hearing your comments.
Thank you so much for that, Commissioner Ellis. We are glad to see all of the community so engaged in this project tonight and look forward to sharing updates. This virtual public meeting will begin with a presentation to share project updates, including the construction schedule and other important information for project hunting. The presentation will be followed by a virtual question and answer session with Flood Control District team members. Attendees will be able to submit comments and questions through the website or by phone. Any comments not addressed during the Q&A session will receive a response from the Flood Control District after the event. Instructions on how to participate in the virtual open house are included on the slides on the virtual meeting webpage and on the Flood Control District website. I will also share a reminder of these instructions when we reach the question and answer portion of the meeting. We will now transition to Marcus Stuckett, our Flood Control District Engineering Division Director, who will share information about the district and this project. Marcus, over to you.
Thank you, Sparkle, and a special thank you to each of you for joining us tonight. In this presentation, we'll give you a brief overview of Project Hunting. But before we get into that, I want to share some information about Harris County Flood Control District, who we are, what we do, and our roles and responsibilities. The Harris County Flood Control District is a special purpose district that was created in 1937, and we were created in response to floods that devastated the Houston area in 1929 and 1935. We were created to serve as a local partner to leverage federal funding for flood damage reduction projects. And our mission has greatly increased over the past 80 years with billions of dollars of infrastructure improvements in the ground. While we are a separate entity from Harris County, the Harris County Commissioners Court serves as our governing body. The mission of the Harris County Flood Control District is to provide flood damage reduction projects that work with appropriate regard for community and natural values. One of the most difficult challenges we face is constructing effective projects in areas that are sensitive to the community and natural values in a highly urbanized area. Harris County includes 22 main watersheds, approximately 1,800 square miles and 2,500 linear miles. 2,500 linear miles is approximately the distance from New York to California. Each watershed has its own unique characteristics and needs. And tonight we're discussing the Hunting Bayou watershed located in central Harris County. Our area is flood prone, and here's some reasons why. We're prone to extreme rainfall events such as hurricanes and tropical storms. We have flat, slow draining topography or landscape. And we have clay soils that do not absorb excess rainfall quickly. The Flood Control District works with other agencies to share jurisdiction over flooding issues in Harris County. This slide illustrates that shared jurisdiction. Inside the neighborhoods, as shown on the left side of this illustration, storm sewers and roadside ditches collect stormwater runoff and start the process of moving it away from streets and homes. Storm sewers and roadside ditches are the responsibility of the underlying municipality and Harris County Engineering in unincorporated parts of the county. The large bayous and channels that collect stormwater and move it through our drainage system and to Galveston Bay are the responsibility of the Harris County Flood Control District. This is shown on the right side of the illustration. In the middle is a stormwater detention basin, sometimes constructed by the Flood Control District. When storm sewers are increased, this creates an increase in runoff. Since it is our policy to avoid impacts to properties downstream, detention basins help safely take in and temporarily store excess stormwater during heavy rain events. Often, we partner with Harris County precincts, utility districts, and others to add recreational amenities such as trails to these basins and along our channels. On August 25, 2018, Harris County voters approved $2.5 billion in bond funds for flood risk reduction projects. This vote followed a series of meetings across Harris County in each watershed, which resulted in a list of what is now more than 181 bond projects, including 4 major projects for the Hunting Bayou watershed. 144 of those 181 projects have already been initiated. A total of more than $680 million in partnership funding received so far stretches the 2018 bond program even further. The actual timing of the individual projects will depend on a variety of factors, including environmental permitting, right-of-way acquisition, and utility relocations. Project lists and project schedules will be updated periodically. Partnership funding is an important aspect of the 2018 bond program. This graphic illustrates the many sources of federal, state, and local funding that the Flood Control District is working to secure for Harris County. Each agency has its own definition of eligible projects and its own requirements for local match funding. Now we'll move to the part of the presentation that is specifically about Project Hunting. Project Hunting is formally known as the Hunting Bayou Federal Flood Risk Management Project. It is a $100 million flood damage reduction partnership project with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The limits of the project are along Hunting Bayou from US 59 to North Wayside Drive. When this project is complete, water surface elevations along the bayou were reduced by 3 to 4 feet for the 1% annual exceedance probability, or 100-year storm event. This reduction will result in the removal of a floodplain from approximately 4,000 structures near the bayou. Many homes and businesses in the area will also benefit by having a reduced risk of flooding. To date, the Flood Control District has spent approximately $35 million on the project. The Bipartisan Budget Act of 2018 has provided $65 million to finish the project. Here are some recently completed and ongoing projects. The final phase of the Homestead Detention Basin was completed last year. This basin added 1,000 acre-feet, or almost 325 million gallons of storage and a control structure. Precinct 1 is currently evaluating amenity opportunities for the basin. The Pickfair, Hoffman, and Dabney Street pedestrian bridges are in the final stages of completion and are currently open for public use. We're also currently working on the closeout of the contract for channel improvements from Homestead Drive to Liberty Drive. 3 new railroad bridges downstream of Liberty are currently in design in collaboration with Union Pacific Railroad. The next segment of the project will be constructing the next 2.5 miles of channel improvements. This segment is located between Highway 59 and the Homestead Stormwater Detention Basin. The project is scheduled to begin construction in fall 2020 and is expected to be complete by fall 2021. The channel in this area will be widened and deepened, new stormwater outfalls will be constructed, and utilities will be adjusted to accommodate the new channel design. The existing pedestrian bridge at North George Street will also be removed, since the new trail connection along the bayou has been completed by the Houston Parks Board. The Flood Control District has coordinated with Commissioner Ellis's office to build new trails and connections as part of this package. Please note that during construction, many existing trails will be closed for safety concerns. The Flood Control District is seeking input on whether the Fall Street Bridge is to be removed and replaced, or whether or not to be removed without replacement. A previously conducted traffic and pedestrian study indicates the Fall Street Bridge has limited use, and there are alternate routes for access of vehicles and to the Houston Parks Board pedestrian trails. If the bridge is not replaced, the risk of potential blockages will be reduced. A T-shaped turnaround will be constructed on the north end of the bridge. There would also be a cost savings to the overall project depending on which option is selected. During construction, there will be no access for vehicles and pedestrians across the Fall Street Bridge. Access across Hunting Bayou is available 1 block over at Leffingwell Street. The final decision on the potential replacement of the Fall Street Bridge has not yet been made. We will consider all public feedback prior to making a determination. The next steps for segment 105 for the Project Hunting channel improvements from US 59 to Homestead Detention Basin include start of construction, which is expected fall 2020, and that construction is expected to last approximately 390 calendar days and anticipated to cost approximately $15.4 million.
Thanks, Marcus, for that helpful overview of this project. Before we move into the Q&A session tonight, I want to share a quick reminder that we would love to hear from you on this and other projects rolling out across Harris County. If you have additional comments or questions throughout the life cycle of this project, or if you would like to sign up to receive email alerts on this and other projects in the watershed, please visit publicinput.com/project hunting. Community engagement is an important component of the work we do, and we invite your continued participation as projects move forward. As a reminder, there are 3 ways to submit a comment about this project during tonight's session. Submit a comment on this site in the box near the presentation live stream. You can also submit a comment on the Flood Control District's website at publicinput.com/project hunting, or submit a comment via phone at 855-925-2801 using meeting code 9730. If you're joining us via phone tonight, please press *3 to leave a message. Additionally, I want to reiterate that any questions not addressed during tonight's Q&A session will receive a response from the Flood Control District after the event. Information from this meeting and a recording of the live stream will be available on the district's website and YouTube channel. Joining Marcus for our Q&A session tonight are Gary Zika, Federal Projects Manager, and Melissa Meyer, Project Manager, who are both overseeing efforts on this project. Our first question is going to be for Gary. How long will construction last on this project?
Good evening. The construction for this project, the one that's out to bid right now, will be receiving bids in the next week from today. And then we hope to have construction to start sometime in October. And the overall duration is over a year, so it'll be October, November timeframe before the construction is complete.
Thank you for giving us some clarity on the timeline. Melissa, this next question is for you. Why are the bridges along the bayou being modified?
Sure. As we start construction, we're widening and deepening the channel. So every time we cross a bridge, we need to look at what the cross-sectional area is under the bridge and make sure we modify that portion of the channel as to not cause any kind of hindrances to the water that's coming down the channel. There's a few things we can do. Each bridge is kind of different. In some cases, we can modify the slopes and build things such as retaining walls. In other cases, we're going to have to completely rebuild the bridge like you've seen with the pedestrian bridges out there that we've recently completed. And in other cases, we're looking at, for instance, Fall Street Bridge, where we might just completely remove the bridge and either replace it with a longer, wider bridge, or just leave it as an open space concept.
Thank you so much for that. Gary, can you tell us how long project hunting has been going on, and can you talk a little bit about the history of the project?
Yeah, the actual studies for this project started back around almost 20 years ago. Because it's an Army Corps of Engineers, we had to go through a long process of determine just what the best project would be. And so when we say the best project, is the project hunting is made up of different components, of being like the detention basins, the bridge replacements, or channel improvements. And so they look at all different types of how big the detention basin is, how wide or how deep the channel might be. So they go through all those different scenarios and try to get the best benefit to cost ratio. And the benefit is the flooding that's been reduced, and the cost is the cost of buying the right of way and constructing the project.
Thanks, Gary. Melissa, the next question is for you. Will Hutchinson Park remain open during construction?
Hutchinson Park will remain open during construction. However, there are trails through Hutchinson Park that are right adjacent to Hunting Bayou. We are removing and replacing those trails as part of this project. So you will see trail closures in the area. You'll also see some construction fencing between the construction area and the park, just to make sure we don't have kids and people using the park coming into active construction areas.
Thank you. Marcus, I think I'll pass this next question to you. How does this project fit into the overall bond program?
Yes, thank you. So remember, the intent of the bond program was to allow flood control $2.5 billion for flood risk reduction projects. To give you just a scope of where we stood previously, flood control typically received about $60 million for capital improvement projects. So before the bond and before the bipartisan budget act, flood control had to spend the money in different areas as as things kind of progressed, and we sort of made decisions on which projects would go first or second. But having the bond funding and the bipartisan budget act become effective, it allowed us to be able to spend a larger chunk of money or a larger sum of money in a shorter amount of time, whereas before there would have been competition with other projects that we had. So in hunting, we identified 4 projects that totaled about $95.5 million. That includes the contribution that we got from the Corps, but it also considered 2 of those 4 projects were actually added to the bond as a result of public input. So 3 of the projects are active now, and we have another one to start in the 4th quartile. And so just to explain what I mean by 4th quartile, the Harris County Commissioner's Court, Commissioner Ellis, mentioned the prioritization framework that we developed. And this was with the assistance of the Harris County Commissioners and the county judge that allowed us to be able to prioritize projects based more on a need based as opposed to a benefit to cost or based on the number of structures that are damaged. So that's kind of how this project ties into the overall bond program.
Thank you, Marcus. It's always good to see how all of this great work we are doing fits into the larger picture. If you are just joining tonight's meeting, I want to remind you that there are 3 ways to submit a comment about this project during tonight's session. Submit a comment on the site in the box in the presentation live stream, or submit a comment on this site. Or submit a comment on this site in the box. Submit a comment in the box near the presentation live stream, or submit a comment on the Flood Control District's website at publicinput.com/project hunting. You can also submit a comment via phone at 855-925-2801 utilizing the meeting code 9730. If you are joining us via phone tonight, please press *3 to leave a message. All right, our next question is going to be for Gary. Gary, can you tell us if there will be any downstream impacts as a result of this project?
Impacts, meaning when we talk about downstream impacts, what we're talking about is when we're doing improvements on the upper end of the watershed where this project is located, Cashmere Gardens, what we don't want to do is just simply take the water that's a problem in this neighborhood and put it on the neighbors further downstream. And so part of this project is we've got the Homestead Detention Basin. And so that Homestead Detention Basin takes the water increases, flows that we've got going downstream and holds it for 24 to 48 hours. That way we avoid any impacts to the neighbors that are further downstream, down 610, closer to the Houston Ship Channel. So we do not have any impacts downstream.
Thanks, Gary. Melissa, this next question is for you. What are some of the immediate next steps for this, and what will we see on the ground?
Right now, we're advertising the project, and we're going to be taking bids from contractors next week. The next step for us is to be awarding it at Commissioner's Court. Sometime around October, probably mid to late October, the winning contractor will begin construction. So out in your neighborhood, the first things you're going to see are the contractors installing pollution prevention measures. What that means is they'll be installing things like silt fences to help keep pollution down once they start turning dirt. They'll be installing what we call stabilized construction exits, which is basically large rocks, well, not large rocks, medium-sized rocks that connect our property to public right-of-way where trucks will be entering and leaving the construction site. That helps keep dirt and dust down to minimum once they start excavating in the area. And shortly after that, you'll be seeing construction will be excavating in the project.
Thank you. Gary, I have a great follow-up to that question. Someone wants to know if they can expect to see contractors working on the weekends or at night or on holidays.
Yeah, the contract that we've got set for the successful contractor, there's no restrictions on weekend work, nights, or holidays, but they do have to comply with all the rules and regulations that are in place with the city of Houston. So while we don't restrict them, there are some restrictions that are already in place just to follow the rules and regulations.
Thank you. Marcus, our next question is about partnerships. How does the Flood Control District work with other entities on these types of projects? Is the Army Corps involved?
So, yes, so the way we typically work with other agencies, so if you recall the exhibit where I show the different roles and responsibilities of the different entities within an overall drainage system, you have the neighborhoods to the left, which again is a municipality or Harris County Engineering if you're in an unincorporated area of Harris County. Their roles and responsibilities are to get the drainage out of the neighborhoods and into a drainage facility, a larger drainage facility, such as the bayous and channels that Harris County Flood Control District controls. So we typically work with those agencies and utility districts in that aspect to minimize the flooding so that they don't create an impact to anyone downstream. We also work with the precincts and sometimes utility districts to add recreational facilities. On the, I guess the exhibit that's on the screen, you see playgrounds, soccer fields, and trails for people to use whenever they are dry and sort of give the community an added benefit there. The Corps is that we're involved in a couple of projects with the United States Army Corps of Engineers. And depending on which bayou we're talking about, we have Brays. There's also a federal project that's on Greens, and we have Project Hunting, also White Oak Bayou. So we have several projects with the Corps that we partnership with, but also part of the bond program, we did set aside $175 million to partnership with other, smaller entities, some of the smaller cities, or even City of Houston, actually, in this case. But it would typically be those agencies meeting with flood control, us talking about what the needs are within their area and their neighborhood, and figuring out how we distribute those funds for their projects.
Thank you so much. Our next question is from Pauline Justice, and I think I'll pass this one over to you, Melissa. The bridge at West Hunting and Russell, will they replace it or remove it?
As part of this project, we're going to be removing that pedestrian bridge right there at West Hunting and Russell. I believe it's closed down right now for some damage to the bridge. Before we started this project, we looked at pedestrian movements in the area, and there really was not a lot of pedestrian traffic going over that bridge in particular. There's also a brand new bridge that Houston Parks Board recently built nearby that goes over the tributary that heads up towards Mickey Leland Park, and that's one of the reasons we're not replacing this particular bridge.
All right, thank you so much, Melissa. Marcus, will you take our next question from Rebecca? She asks, will this project reduce the floodplain or lower insurance rates and flood risk in the neighborhood?
So I can partially answer that question. What I can answer is that the project will reduce the floodplain and the flood risk. However, I'm not an insurance agent, so I don't know whether or not it will affect those insurance rates. I suspect it will, but that's just not a question that I can answer. We expect about 3 to 4 feet of reduction on the 100-year storm event, which is what most insurance agents use as the standard for insurance rates.
Thank you so much for that. Gary, will you take this next question? Where will all of the dirt that is excavated from this project go?
Yeah, the dirt, we've got to make sure that the dirt that's coming out of from this project doesn't go back into the floodplain in a different place. So the contractor's is required by the contract to tell us where he's taking the dirt. Some of the dirt goes to road projects where they need embankments for bridges. Some of it goes to commercial projects, like if they were building a big commercial building and needed to build up the pad. Some of the dirt also goes to landfills for the daily cover that they need. So there's a lot of areas that that there's needs for this type of material. So we make sure that all of it doesn't go back to the floodplain and it's put to good use.
Thank you so much. We've noticed that a few people have joined a little bit late. So at this point, I'd like to ask Marcus to go back through some of the project specific information for anyone who joined later.
Sure, no problem. So Project Hunting is a project that's formerly known as the Hunting Bayou Federal Risk Management Project. It's about a $100 million flood damage reduction partnership project with the Army Corps of Engineers. And the limits of this project are along Hunting Bayou from US 59 to about North Wayside Drive. What we expect is that this project will reduce water surface elevations for the 3 to 4 feet for the 1% annual exceedance probability, or what we refer to as the 100-year storm event. And this results in approximately 4,000 structures being removed from the floodplain that are near the bayou. It also will help to reduce the risk of homes and businesses within the area. To date, the Flood Control District has spent approximately $35 million on the project, and the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2018 provided $65 million for us to be able to finish the project.
All right, thank you, Marcus. Our next question will be for Melissa. Will there be improvements made under the Lockwood Bridge for residents to cross underneath the bridge to avoid traffic?
Underneath Lockwood, we are building what we call maintenance ramps. Flood control typically doesn't build trails. We build maintenance ramps, and that's for our maintenance and mowers to get under bridges in certain spots. This project, we are teaming up with Precinct 1, who is providing funding for trails in the area, and those trails will match up with these maintenance ramps that we're building so people can cross under Lockwood there.
Okay, Marcus, we're going to pitch it back to you to give a little more of the project specific information.
So a couple of projects that we've recently completed or that we have ongoing. We're in the final phase of the Homestead Stormwater Detention Basin, which was completed last year, actually. It added 1,000 acre feet or 325 million gallons of storage and a control structure. And we're working with Precinct 1 to evaluate amenities for that basin. The Hoffman, Pickfair, Dabney Street pedestrian bridges are complete, nearing completion, and actually are currently open for public use. We're also working close with the contractor for channel improvements from Homestead to Liberty Drive. 3 new railroad bridges downstream of Liberty are currently in design, and we're working with the Union Pacific Railroad on those. All right, next slide. So the next work that we have coming up now is construction of the next 2.5 miles of channel improvements. Again, those are located between Highway 59 and the Homestead Stormwater Detention Basin. We expect construction to start in fall 2020 and expected it to be complete by fall 2021. What we're looking at doing in this area is deepening and widening the channel, adding new stormwater outfalls, and adjusting some of the utilities to kind of give it a more open concept for the new channel design. The existing pedestrian bridge at George Street will be removed since the Houston Parks Board has created the new trail connections there. Also, Commissioner Ellis with Precinct 1 and his office, we're going to add the trails for the precinct as part of this package that we're working on now. And we just want to make sure everyone understands that the trails will be closed during construction, and that'll be done just for safety concerns. So we are looking for input on the Fall Street Bridge because we are considering whether or not we're going to remove and replace the bridge, or remove the bridge without replacing. If we did a study that showed that the bridge actually had limited use and there were alternate access routes for both vehicles and pedestrians at other locations other than Fall Street. If the bridge is replaced, it does reduce the risk of potential channel blockages. We'll also, for the north side, we'll put in a T-shaped turnaround that will allow people who live on that north side of the bayou to be able to get in and out and access back to the north. During construction, though, there won't be any access across Fall Street Bridge, and access to cross the bayou, if you're going from south up to north, will be 1 block over at Leffingwell Street. We hadn't made a final decision on whether or not to remove and replace or remove without replacement. So that's why we're having this meeting tonight, because it's important that we get the public's feedback so that we can proceed and make sure that we're taking care of the community and natural values portion of the project. And so our next steps, again, as we've said, we expect construction to start somewhere fall of 2020. We expect that duration to be approximately 390 days. And our estimated cost right now is $15.4 million.
Thank you so much for that. If anyone is wanting or thinking of where they need to go to get additional information about this project, please visit hcfcd.org/project hunting to learn more about the project. There you can ask questions and sign up for our mailing list. And again, that's all the information is on the website. Additionally, I want to reiterate that any questions not addressed during tonight's Q&A will receive a response from the Flood Control District after the event. Information from this meeting and a recording of the live stream will be available on the Flood Control District's website and YouTube channel. All right, back to our questions. Our next question is for Gary. Gary, who should they contact if dump trucks are entering and leaving the site track a lot of mud onto the street?
Well, when the trucks may, at different times when they get mud out on the streets, if that's a real problem, and we do get mud on the streets because trucks go off road, and we do have stabilized construction accesses that help keep that mud on the job sites, not on the roads. But at any point, you could always call the City of Houston Police Department. They'll come out and investigate what's going on and seeing what we're doing in terms of keeping that mud off the street.
Thank you. Okay, Gary, this next one will be for you as well. What alternatives were considered as part of this project?
Yeah, the original project, because it started 20 plus years ago, they originally started looking at the project from the Houston Ship Channel all the way up to the upper reaches of the watershed in Cashmere Gardens. And they have to look at each different things. And the different things they look at is how big the detention basins are, how many detention basins there are. And when I say how big, meaning how much water can be stored in each individual detention basin. They also look at the channel size, whether it's a 10-foot bottom or a 50-foot bottom. And they also look at the depth. They're trying to get it as deep as they can in order to move water out of the neighborhoods. When you start making the channels bigger, then you start looking at, well, do I have to modify all the bridges along the way? We've already done, one of the railroad bridges have already been replaced. The 610 bridge has already been widened. The Kelly Street East Bridge was replaced with when TxDOT rebuilt the 610 bridges in the past. And so there's a lot of different components that they look at. They'll look at home buyouts. They'll look at levies if they're appropriate in the area. So there's a lot of different things that they look at. They don't all become part of the final project, but they have to look at them all in order to. And one of the other ones is don't do any kind of project. That's another component, is you don't do anything to see what you're comparing against.
Thank you, Gary. As a reminder, there are 3 ways to submit a comment about this project during tonight's session. Submit a comment on this site in the box near the presentation live stream. You can submit a comment on the Flood Control District's website at publicinput.com/project hunting, or submit a comment via phone at 855-925-2801 using the meeting code 9730. If you're joining us via phone tonight, please press *3 to leave a message. All right, our next question is from Jacqueline Prinsels. Jacqueline, thank you for joining us tonight. I'd like to pass this one on to you, Melissa. Jacqueline's question is, the soil from this project, if it is good soil and safe, what is the possibility of having some of that soil to build our lots back up, which were gravely washed away by Hurricane Harvey?
Since this is a federal project, the contractor has to submit where he's taking that dirt as part of this project. Unfortunately, since most of this immediate area is in the floodplain, we're not going to be able to allow any kind of dirt to be placed back into the floodplain. That's one of the regulations that we have to follow as part of this project.
Thank you, Melissa. Can you also answer the next question? Will the flood control district be installing any lights with the new trail connections?
We will not be installing any kind of lights with these trail connections. We're just going to be installing trails. And the reason for that is putting lights in our right of way can be a little bit tricky. The underground conduit associated with that kind of lighting is very problematic for us, and that's because it's not very deep in the ground, and our mowers and equipment can damage that electrical conduit that would go along with the lighting. So we'll just be installing the trails at this time.
Thank you, Melissa. Marcus, we're going to go back to you for this one. Will the flood control district still attend our civic club and super neighborhood meetings to provide updates?
Absolutely. If there are any civic clubs or super neighborhoods that are joining that would like Harris County Flood Control District to join any meetings, then we'll reach out to us. We'll get you in contact with our communications department, and they will get you in contact with the correct person to provide you the information that you're looking for. Again, it's extremely important that we want the community to understand that we are listening to their concerns and that we are willing to do things to try to help them, to keep them informed. It's not our intent to leave anyone out or to leave people in the dark and just all of a sudden dump trucks show up in front of your home. But we really want that public input. We really want the public to feel engaged, because honestly, if we do our job and make the public and the different people who are getting benefit from our projects happy, then I mean, personally for me, it makes me happy and excited that I was actually able to help someone.
Absolutely, Marcus. It is quite rewarding, and I'll just reiterate that community engagement is a critical part of what we do. We want to hear from you. We encourage participation and education in all of our projects. So please do log on to the Harris County Flood Control District's website to get more information on this project, or to just reach out to us if you'd like for us to attend or participate in any of your community meetings. Our next question is for Melissa. Can you talk more about Fall Street Bridge? What type of feedback are you looking for?
Sure. Fall Street Bridge, before we went through the process of designing this particular project, we did traffic counts in the area to see what kind of traffic was actually going over Fall Street Bridge. We looked at both vehicular traffic as well as pedestrian movements. The traffic was very, very low, in single digits just about. So we're looking for your input. Right now we're planning on removing this bridge is part of this package, but we're looking to see what the community would like to see. They'd rather see it removed and replaced, or just removed without replacement. If we remove it without replacing it, we would build a T-shaped turnaround on the northern side of the bayou. This is a requirement by the city of Houston, so emergency vehicles can turn around in the area, garbage trucks can easily turn around. We would also, if we removed the bridge, it's going to reduce the risk of just trash and junk getting caught up on the bridge in the channel and causing blockages, essentially. And if we didn't replace it, we would also save money. The amount of traffic that went over the bridge just doesn't really warrant rebuilding. an entire bridge. But again, we have not made a final decision, and we're going to look at all of the feedback from the community before we make a final decision. On this slide here, if you go to hcfcd.org/falls-bridge, you can leave a comment there as to what you would like to see, or you can call us.
All right, thank you, Melissa. Gary, this next question is for you. Is there a way to expedite this project?
We've got 390 days in the contract that we've set out. It takes a certain amount of time to move the number of trucks that we've got to get, the contractor's got to get in and out of the job site. We figured the 390 days is a fair amount of time. There's also, if it rains a lot, it may be delayed even further, but we're hoping that we've got enough days of wet days in a typical year in that 390 days. So the biggest problem that we've had in the past of why the project hasn't moved along has been funding. But with the Bipartisan Act of 2018, the Congress and the U.S. Army, through the Army Corps of Engineers, has guaranteed us that we've got the funding. Where in the past we've done work that we haven't been able to get reimbursed from the Army Corps of Engineers to date. But now with this Bipartisan Act of 2018, we've got funding guaranteed to finish the job. So that's probably the biggest thing that's helped move this project along.
Thank you, Gary. Melissa, the next question is about trees. We talked a little bit about trees earlier, but I'd like for you to take this one. It says, does the flood control district plan to replant any trees once the project is complete?
We do. Harris County Flood Control District does have a tree planting program. So even though we're going to be out there clearing a lot of the existing trees to finish up this project, once construction's complete next year and we get grass established in the area, we will come out here and plant new trees.
Thank you. Gary, Pauline has a question for you. Is there a diagram where the crossover bridges that will be removed totally on West Hunting Bayou? If she understands that the bridge at West Hunting and Russell will be removed, which is great, but the other two that are located on the backside of the community, what about them?
Those two are still going to be in place. They were, when the West Hunting Trail was rebuilt, they were reconnected back into the so you could still cross over to them. So those two are still going to be in place with that new trail that was put along West Hunting Bayou. So those two are staying in place. The only one that's being removed is the one at Russell, which is presently closed down due to damage. And then the Eastern Parks Board's already rebuilt or put the new one in on the south bank over that tributary of West Hunting. So the pedestrian bridges are all, except for removing the one on Russell, we've already replaced Pickfair, Hoffman, and Dabney. So those are the other three pedestrian bridges that have been replaced already as part of the preparation for the channel improvements.
Thank you. Marcus, would you take this next question? Will there be anyone on my property during the project? And if so, what time of the day or what day of the week?
And I can answer part of that question. Will there be anyone on your property during the project? We don't anticipate anyone being on your property. We try to work within our right-of-way that we own as the flood control district. And the day and time of week, if someone was there, what we would typically do is ask and request a right of entry if we need to access your property for one reason or another. So we don't anticipate doing it, but who knows what happens in the field that we may come to you and ask, can we get a right of entry from you? But while we're out there, if someone experiences someone that they think is on their property, then we always, go to the Harris County Flood Control District website and just do a report. What I think is important for everyone to understand is a lot of times people think that they own right of way because maybe something was there encroaching within property that's actually owned by Flood Control District, but it encroaches on our land. So a lot of times we see fence extensions because people say, oh, I thought my property line ended here. And sometimes your property line may end there, but if we have something like an easement, then we have the right to be able to move that fence back or access it. But again, it's not something that would just happen. All of a sudden you'll come home and your fence or anything like that will be torn down. We will work with the public and coordinate with you if we encounter any of those during the project.
Thank you, Marcus, and thank all of you for participating in tonight's meeting. As a reminder, any questions not addressed during tonight's Q&A session will receive a response from the Flood Control District after the event. Information from this meeting and a recording of the live stream will be available on the district's website and YouTube channel. We are continuing to accept comments and feedback on this project through the comment period, which runs through August 24th. But we welcome engagement throughout the duration of the project's life cycle. Our next question is for Gary, and it's from Iris. She was wondering, will there be any buyouts in this phase of project hunting?
In the past, we've had probably over 100 properties that we needed to purchase as part of the project hunting. We had to do that in advance because you can't wait until the very end. There's a couple small lots that we're still working on, but they're not home buyouts as such. And we're working with the railroad to acquire the necessary right-of-way downstream. So a couple small purchases, but they're more partial tracks, just little corners that we need. But the home buyouts of the 100 odd plus that we did previously, that's all done. So there won't be any more home buyouts at this point.
Thank you, Gary. We always try to use these community engagement meetings as an opportunity to also educate residents in Harris County of different terminology that we use and different, areas of responsibility. And so I think, Marcus, I'd like you to take these next two questions. Can you talk about a little bit or explain what a watershed is, and then also talk a little bit about the drainage jurisdiction between the city and county responsibilities?
Sure, thanks. So a watershed is, it's typically based on the topography. So there are high areas. I know we don't typically see them and think that we have high areas in Houston, but there are areas that specifically drain to a channel, and it's based on the topography as you go through each individual watershed. So, for example, for the watershed we're in now in Hunting, it's shown as the sort of greenish color where the star is there. There's actually a high point, maybe even a few feet difference between there and the point to where the water actually drains towards the channel. So that's how we define those watersheds. It's all of the water. If the water fell only within that area, then it would drain to that bayou. So that's what a watershed is. The other question was related to drainage jurisdiction and responsibilities. So looking at the map that's on the screen, we work with the drainage system works as one full thing. So the example I like to give, if you're experiencing flooding and the bayous have exceeded its banks, but the neighborhood is dry, then that would be typically the Harris County Flood Control District responsibility to try to come up with a solution for that drainage problem. If you're in the city or municipal jurisdiction, which is shown on the left side, so this is a situation where your neighborhood has received some rain and you're starting to get street flooding, but you go to the bayou and it's dry, then that's typically an internal drainage problem. And so the way we work with other jurisdictions, if you're in the scenario that I just spoke of, so there's water in your streets and close to, getting close to flooding the homes or something like that, but you go to the bayou and the bayou is dry, then that means that the infrastructure, so the storm sewers and the roadside ditches within a neighborhood needs to be increased so that it can get to the bayou faster. where the joint participation comes in, or jurisdiction comes in, is now that those storm sewers are larger, they make water get out of the neighborhood faster. That's what keeps the neighborhood dry. That's what keeps it from flooding. Well, if you just take that water out of the neighborhood, it's sort of like pulling a plug out of a bathtub. Once you pull that out, you go from a slow drain scenario to all of a sudden all this water's going downstream. Well, we don't want to pull the plug on the bathtub and then push the water somewhere else. So the detention basin is meant to take that water and hold it so that it doesn't increase the flows downstream. So sometimes it's detention basins, sometimes it's the channel. If it's only the channel, then flood control finds ways to create detention basins like the Homestead Detention Basin in this area to pull flows off the bayou so that the channel can be increased to take in more flow without impacting others downstream.
Thank you so much for that great information, Marcus. Earlier this evening, we were joined by Precinct 1 County Commissioner Rodney Ellis. He kicked off our call with a message. We'd like to replay that for some of our residents who joined later.
Hello, this is Harris County Commissioner Rodney Ellis. Thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to join us this evening. These meetings are important. Getting feedback and opinions on flood control projects is how we can ensure that projects work for you and your neighbors. Flooding is an ever-present threat to our community. It remains one of Harris County's highest priorities. As we approach the third anniversary of Hurricane Harvey later this month, we can't forget that many of our communities are vulnerable to flooding. Since joining Commissioners Court in 2017, I have fought for equity to be at the center of our decision-making when it comes to prioritizing flood control projects across the county. In 2018, Harris County voters passed a $2.5 billion flood bond that gave underserved communities their first opportunity to receive real flood mitigation. The explicit ballot language required a process for the equitable distribution of flood bonds to reduce flood risk. After decades of neglect, lower income areas and communities of color in flood-prone areas have been experiencing flooding of homes and streets with each hard rain because these communities have been passed over for years due to an inequitable federal formula. That formula would prioritize flood mitigation projects based on property values, not people. That serves only those who live in higher income neighborhoods rather than those in the most need. With these guidelines, we are now able to prioritize areas that have a higher risk for loss of life due to disasters and take longer to recover from those disasters. The federal project on Hunting Bayou will provide long overdue relief from the cycle of severe flooding and rebuilding. But we know that we can always improve. We still have work to do to make your community stronger and more resilient to flooding. Your feedback tonight will make an enormous difference as we work together to make this project the best that it can be. Thank you for being a part of tonight's call, and thanks to the Harris County Flood Control District for hosting this virtual meeting. We're looking forward to hearing your comments.
Thank you so much for that. As a reminder, any questions not addressed during tonight's Q&A will receive a response from the Flood Control District after the event. Information from this meeting, along with a recording of the live stream, will be available on the Flood Control District's website and YouTube channel. For up-to-date information, please visit hcfcd.org/project hunting to learn more about the project, ask questions, and sign up for our mailing list. And with that, I'd like to share one final reminder that we are continuing to accept comments and feedback on this project throughout the comment period, which runs through August 24th, 2020. But we, of course, welcome engagement throughout the duration of the project's life cycle. Thank you again for joining us this evening and for your engagement with this project. We look forward to continuing to share updates, as our work moves forward. Stay safe and have a lovely evening.